Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
I love you, baby.
Yeah, I love you too. Who is that texting you?
Nobody, baby. Don't worry about it.
Nobody. It says Tina. Who the fuck is Tina? Who the fuck is Tina?
Bitch, you know what? Get your shit and get out.
You know what? I love you, babe, but maybe we should take a break.
A break? Maybe you should kiss my ass.
Sound familiar? You in a relationship and this shit ain't working. It's time for the truth. This is the Voice of Reason with Zoe Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Voice of Reason has returned to Dash Radio. It's Hot Button Radio, Monday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, if you're on the East Coast, that's 3 hours ahead. That's 8 p.m. Listen, we got an incredible topic today. I need you to get to your phone lines right now, 844-55-1. That's 844-55-1. The topic, the guests, it's really going to be a serious situation today. But before I introduce the topic, let me pull in my co-hosts.
Hey.
Whitney Tabor.
What's poppin', y'all?
Yes. And
what up?
lovely Cheyenne Bryant. Well,
Hello,
they're
beautiful
both lovely,
people.
Jesus.
Hello.
Well, you know, we're in the building right now. And is my guest on the line right now? Let me throw it to Cheyenne. Cheyenne, I'd like for you to introduce our guest. And then after you introduce the guest, then I will introduce the topics. But I urge you, get to your phone lines right now and call us to chime in on this subject. 844-55-1. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about our esteemed guest, whom we're about to introduce? Go ahead.
Absolutely. We have Tim Wise in here today, you guys. It's going to be a really, really amazing show. You guys are going to really enjoy this. So Wise is the author of 6 books, such as highly acclaimed memoir of The White Like Me. He does reflections on race from a privileged son. Is this one of his books? Is that right?
Yeah.
As well as Dear White America. How about that one? Dear White America.
Dear White America.
That's the one where I was like, woo.
Is that like that movie, White People?
But the thing is, Tim Wise is a white man who wrote a book, Dear White America.
Wow.
Right?
So what is he? Is he
So he is an... Zoe's going to help me on this word.
an essayist?
Be quiet. Let me say it.
Let me just say it.
Essayist. He's an essayist. And he's an anti-racist. And back from in his collegiate days, he put together different, groups and so forth to educate white people on how they are privileged in the world.
You mean white people don't know this?
Absolutely, a lot of them don't. And so he had to bring awareness to them. And that, to me, that's enlightening. That's amazing.
Listen, without further ado, he did our other show, the Zoe What Morning Show, and he really set it on fire. So I think it's only right that we bring him into this much larger situation, this bigger platform with a larger audience, because the information that this brother has needs to be shared. Tim Wise, welcome to the Voice of Reason with Zoe Williams. How are you today, bro?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. Congratulations on the step up.
Thank you, man. And I appreciate you for doing the smaller show. And
hey, man, it was great. I love that show. It needed to be bigger, but now you got a bigger platform. So
yeah, man. You killed the game on that show. And we want to do the same thing today. So without further ado, let me introduce the topic. And I just think it's an interesting topic here. How much is the black man and woman responsible for our current socioeconomic situation here in America? And listen, you know how I do. I have so many questions to ask surrounding this. Because you got a lot of black people out there that say, shut your mouth and pull yourself up by the bootstraps and stop victimizing yourself. And is black victimization the polar opposite of white privilege? I just think those are some interesting questions. Talk to me about it, Tim.
Well, you know, it's complicated because on the one hand, I don't think we would ever ask the question in this society, what role do Jewish men and women play in the Holocaust of European Jewry, right? Like that question would never even get asked. And for a reason, because we understand that it wasn't Jewish folks' fault that some people thought it was worthwhile to drive several million Jewish folks into ovens and shoot them in the woods and kill them in mass numbers. Because we understand that victimization is not a psychological thing; it's a real thing. Like, people are actually victims of oppression. It's not something folks make up. Like, it's real.
Right.
Now, having said that, is it possible that the targets of victimization, those who are in fact victimized, can, as a result of victimization, adapt certain responses to that might perpetuate disempowerment? Well, of course, and that could be true for Jewish folk. Like, for example, I'm Jewish, and I happen to think, but I'm very critical of the state of Israel. I'm very critical of Zionism as a philosophy, the way it not only has impacted Palestinian people, but I don't actually think it's healthy for Jewish folk. I think it creates, for many of us in the Jewish community, a mentality of perpetual "they're coming to get us again" kind of thing. So I can get on the one hand, hey, victimization against Jewish folks historically has been real. On the other hand, I don't think that our adaptation to that, which was, hey, let's get a state where we can all go and be safe, is real smart, because I have to be honest, if somebody wanted to kill a couple million Jews again, you get us all in one place and we're sort of sitting ducks, you know what I mean? So to me, that's never been the best move, right? So I understand how adaptations to oppression might be dysfunctional, but I always want to suggest that, and this would certainly be true for black folk, it would be true for indigenous Native North American brothers and sisters here in the United States, that we always want to keep our eye on the cause of whatever the maladaptive thing might be. So, like, let's say victims adapt to their victimization in a messed up way. Okay, we got to talk about that, but let's never forget that the victimization is what produced the response. We don't ever want to take the accountability and the responsibility off the system of oppression. And sometimes I think in this country, that's what we do. So we talk about, like you said, people will say, hey, get your stuff together, pull yourself up, stop being a victim. But if we want people to stop being a victim, we have to have people stop being victimized, right?
Wow.
So to me, we can't ever talk about what black folks need to do in this situation without also saying, what does the system of white supremacy have to do? What do white folks have to do? What is our role? Because otherwise, I'm afraid it's not necessarily blaming the victim, but it's definitely putting the onus of responsibility on them. And I think that's putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, that's the author, acclaimed author, Tim Wise on the phone, anti-racist essayist on the line right now. Also on the line, joining Tim is our always welcome good friend, Veronica Conway. Veronica, have you been listening to the brother Tim drop the science?
Yes, of course I have. And I just want to say I've followed Tim. I've been a fan of his for a long time because I think that there's just very few Jewish brothers out here that are willing to stand up and have the courage and say the things that he says to white people. He knows, I think sometimes he knows about the black condition better than we know about it ourselves. And he's out there on the front lines. I think the whole issue of white privilege, I watched that whole conversation really begin to rise in the national consciousness in the zeitgeist as he sort of built that conversation, speech after speech and show after show. And I think it sort of got steam. The tide turned, and it became it became normal to understand that, like, white privilege is a real thing. I think he was so instrumental in that. So I just wanted to give that prop.
844-55-1. We want to hear your thoughts. 844-55-1. Let me ask you both, as well as my esteemed panel of young ladies here. The reason, let me give you guys a briefing of their roles. Whitney Tabor is just young. She's she's a babe, and she represents the millennials who, in my opinion, the millennials and younger, they're really disconnected. They really believe they live in a post-racial society, right? They feel like it don't even really matter what y'all talking about, right?
A lot of friends who are very privileged.
So I'm very interested in her perspective and how all of this heavy philosophy and what's going on and the rift between whatever. To some of these young kids, especially like, say, my 18-year-old, he's like, and? What are you guys talking about? We're good.
When are the Jordans releasing?
Right. When are the new Jordans coming, right?
Did Drake drop an album? Like, what's happening?
Right. They're not really connected that way. And then the other part of that question is, if African Americans are still living in a system of white supremacy, what negative effects does that have on our intimacy, how we relate to each other? 844-55-1, that's the number to dial. You're listening to Zoe Williams, the voice of reason on Dash Radio. Hot Button Radio, get to your phone lines right now and let's talk to Tim Wise, Veronica Conway, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, as well as Whitney Tabor. Who wants to field that question? Somebody get at me right now.
I'll jump in. I mean, first of all, we talk about it as white supremacy, but I also like to language it as white aggression. Because supremacy is the ideology that whiteness is superior to other cultures. But the way it manifests itself is through white aggression, meaning systematically going out all over the world and annihilating black and brown people. That's what's been going on all this time, right? So let's just call that for what it is. But the psychological impact of that, which is what I spent my life studying, right, is that I think that white supremacy and white aggression and terrorism has actually trained us to participate in our own demise. That's what internalized oppression is, right? When we take on when we internalize the racism from the dominant culture, it ends up manifesting itself as a form of self-hate. Now, I speak at Black conferences all over the country. I talk about people all over the country, all over the world, and there's this constant conversation about why can't we find a way to, why can't we decide? Why can't we make a choice to treat each other better, to create beautiful Black families, to have communities that are strong and empowered? And I think so much of that is a remnant and a legacy of this this internalized racism we've experienced. That it creates a sort of paralysis in our situation.
Tim?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think, the targets of domination and subordination and aggression all around the world and throughout the history of the world have internalized the oppressor's modalities and mentalities. It's a very universal phenomenon. You will see it probably in any society where you have people that have been subordinated, because obviously if you're going to colonize a people's land, the property you need to colonize at least first or concomitant to that is the property between their ears. And so in a sense, you have to colonize the mind of the target. You're not necessarily going to get all of them, but you're going to get enough of them, or you're going to get all of them to enough of an extent that you can maintain a certain degree of subordination. I think the two things that I would say, because it's absolutely right on point, is number one, again, just repeating what I said before, which is let's always remember that there's still a source of that internalization, that the internalized oppression, that's the key word, right? Oppression. Like it wasn't an internal weakness of the target. It wasn't, a lot of times I think in the mainstream conversation about this, it's very easy to assume that the pathology, the dysfunction, what is being identified on this show as internalized oppression is somehow almost like an essential cultural artifact of Blackness, when indeed it is not. It is something very much that has been imposed and then internalized. So we always want to link the oppression to that internalization. And then the second piece I think of that is that we want to recognize that as, for example, a couple of years ago, now it's been 2 years, I went and I was giving a talk up in the Twin Cities, and the audience was primarily students of color, young folks. We're talking high school kids who went to these charter schools up in the Twin Cities that had been established. Unlike some charters, these were charters that had been established by some liberation-minded folk that really wanted to, or at least theoretically, liberation-minded folk wanted to really help folks that were marginalized. A third of the kids were homeless. They weren't all kids of color, but they were disproportionately kids of color. And when I got to the conference that had been set up for them, it was very interesting. I was the last speaker of the day, and there had been several speakers before, both white and of color, who sort of, they hadn't really, you could just tell. I walked in the room, and a lot of the young folks had just sort of slouched in the seats. They weren't really listening. They had their head on the tables. They seemed checked out. And as I listened to the speakers, I knew why. Like, the speakers were sort of giving them the boot camp kind of pull yourself up, don't be a victim, sort of all the kind of motivational speaker stuff that you almost think is like a Saturday Night Live skit or something. Like it's almost caricaturish, cartoonish, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I got up for my thing, I'm like, on the one hand, I realized here I am, this middle-aged white man from the South, and I'm supposed to come up here and tell these young 17, 16, 18-year-old, mostly black and brown kids what's up. And that's a little bit crazy on one level. On the other hand, I said, maybe I have something that I can say. And so I got up, and my thing to them, because what they've been hearing all day, it seemed to me, was a deficit model, which is basically perfect for internalizing oppression. If I tell you that the problem is you, the problem is your neighborhood, the problem is your mama, the problem is your auntie, the problem is your, community, then all I'm doing, the best case scenario is you're going to internalize the oppression. The worst case scenario is you're going to lose your mind and hurt yourself or somebody else, physically. So my thing was, I got up and I said, look, I just want to apologize on behalf of not even just all white folks, just all folks in this country who have not empowered me to apologize to you, but I'm going to do it anyway, and just tell you that we lied to you. We straight lied to you. And all of a sudden, these young people who had been essentially being lectured at for 4 hours, you saw them sit up. They got their heads off the desk. They sort of looked at each other. I saw one guy look at the other guy, and he's like, what is this shit? He was just like, what is that? And it wasn't in a bad way. He was in a good way. He's like, what is this guy saying? And so my thing was, I said, we lied to you. We lied to you when we said that we were creating an equal opportunity society. We lied to you when we told you this was a land of opportunity. Here's how I know it's a lie. And here's how we perpetuate the lie. And for the first time, it wasn't like they didn't know that. Let me be real clear. These young people, they all knew that they were being lied to. And a third of them are homeless. They got to know that the American dream is at least partly a lie, a myth, if not a lie. But they had never in their life had an authority figure, especially a white authority figure. But it looked to me like not even a black or brown authority figure stand up and just tell them, this is what you think is happening. That stuff you think is going on. Yeah, that's really going on. That's actually what's real. And to have their truth ratified was the thing that broke through some, because I have no doubt that they were internalizing some of the oppression, because they were being asked to do that by every other person in the room, it seemed like, or at least most of them. And so to have somebody say, no, it's not you. It's not your community. It's not your neighborhood. It's certainly not your racial or ethnic group. And it's not even your economic group. It's we lied to you. We set this up this way. Wow. And you are now reaping the detriment of that. Wow. You are, the sort of collateral, not even the collateral damage. You're the straight up real damage of a system that was set up not to provide equal opportunity. And all of a sudden these kids were taking notes, right? I mean, and I'm not trying to say that to toot my own horn. It's got nothing to do with me. It was just about the process of truth telling and the process of looking at young people and saying that y'all are not crazy. You're not seeing things. This is real. And so I think one of the ways that we can break through internalized oppression is to start telling the truth. The reason people internalize their oppression is because they're being lied to about the source of their injury. Wow.
Listen, if you're just tuning into the Voice of Reason, I don't know if y'all know right now, we got heavy hitters on the phone line. We've got anti-racist essayist Tim Wise is on the line right now, as well as transformational life coach extraordinaire Veronica Conway, sitting in with Whitney Tabor and Cheyenne Bryant. Get to your phone lines. The number to dial is 844-55-1. That's the number to dial if you have questions, if you have remarks or anything you want to say right now. I think the girls have questions. Let's go with Cheyenne first. What question do you have for Veronica and Tim?
Hey, hi, Veronica. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
You guys there? Hey. My question is, what is the white woman's role in westernized racism?
Ooh. Damn. You did some research.
You want to take that first?
Yikes.
Whoa.
That's heavy.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was about to say, should I go ask my wife?
Let me go ask my wife. Let me see what she has to say about this whole situation.
Yeah, right.
We would love to speak to her.
I can make my piece on this pretty quick. I think that the white woman, it was an interesting situation with the development of white supremacy historically. I mean, on the one hand, to the extent that white women in a system of patriarchal domination, male domination, were tethered to white men. And now I'm speaking of in terms of at least in the heterosexual partnering of white folks. They were therefore collaborative and collaborators with a system of domination that on the one hand empowered them as white people. On the other hand, interestingly, subordinated them as women. See, the thing about white male, sort of what Bell Hooks called capitalist patriarchal white supremacy, and what she calls that now, is that white supremacy was created as this way to, on the one hand, elevate whites as whites, but on the other hand, also to elevate white men above all, including, quote unquote, their own women, which is to say that what white men did was create an ideology that basically said, essentially it said to white women, look, we have to protect you from those black men who are, typified in white supremacy as sexually aggressive, as violent, as libidinous, as dangerous. And so what white men did, very, very creative, very innovative, and very evil system, was create a system whereby white women were, you've heard the phrase, put on a pedestal. But the thing about that pedestal was that it was a way to keep white women in check, as it was also a way to keep people of color in check. It was saying, we're going to put white women on a pedestal to protect them, quote unquote. So by saying that black men were dangerous, you're obviously trying to subordinate them. You're trying to create a stereotype, a prototype of what black maleness is. But you're also saying to the white women, you need us. You need white men. You can't protect yourself from those brutes. You have to have us as your protectors, which really means you're going to be subordinated to us. So in a way, white women were placed in this very interesting and place of both privilege and oppression, privilege and marginalization. And I think historically, what we've seen is that white women sort of, on the one hand, white women, like white folks generally, get addicted to the privilege piece, even as they might fight the subordination piece, right? So you have a lot, if you look at maybe the first and second waves of mainstream white feminism, it was very much focused on the needs and the concerns of white women, not necessarily black and brown women. Now, there were always white feminists who broke out of that mold and joined with folks like Audre Lorde and others, and Bell Hooks and others, and talked about it in a much more intersectional way. But those first couple of waves, was white women talking about, for instance, that to them, feminism meant having opportunities to work outside the home. Well, hell, black women had always been working outside their own home. Latino women had been working outside their own home. Indigenous women had been working outside their own home. And for that matter, poor white women had been working outside their own home. So it was actually a middle-class white standard, right? So that, I think, is part of the dual nature of where white women were placed in that system, elevated on one level, subordinated on another, and it's created this somewhat sort of socially schizophrenic spot for white women.
A rock in the hard place right there. Catch 22. Ladies and gentlemen, the Zoe Williams Morning Show. Listen, we gotta take a break. This is the voice of reason. I need you guys to get to your phone lines. If you don't know about racism in America, you gonna know today. You're going to get hit upside your head today. And that's the purpose. We're going to have these difficult conversations. That's the purpose of this platform. Please get to your phone lines, 844-55-1. We're about to take a quick break, and we'll be back in 2.2 seconds. The VOR, that's how we get down. Ladies and gentlemen, we've returned. Hot Button Radio gets no hotter. Listen, black folk, are we living in bizarro world? Because we're under the psychological oppression of white supremacist ideas and systems and institutions. How do we break free? How do we live a life that is authentic, right? Without the fingerprints of white supremacy on our minds. When they say they've taken the shackles off of our arms and legs and necks, do the shackles, right, the proverbial shackles on our mind, do they still exist? Are they still firmly in place? And not only are they still firmly in place, are they platinum plated now? Somebody get to your phone lines, 844-55-1. Today's topic, man, is a doozy. And if you just tuned in, I really want you guys to understand we got some heavy hitters on the line. Tim Wise, anti-racist essayist, is in the building. Well, he's not in the building per se. He's on the phone and he's dropping bombs, as well as transformational life coach Veronica Conway. How much is the black man and woman responsible for our current socioeconomic situation here in America? And it's a very tough question. Is the perceived enmity between black men and women a lasting generational curse inherited from slavery? That's stank. But before we get on that stanky question, Veronica, she had an answer for the last question about the white woman's role in racism in America.
I want to tag a little bit on what Tim said, because in particular, and just clarify it, because what I believe is that past is prologue. There was a book that came out a while back, maybe 15 years ago, called Mississippi, where this writer went down to Mississippi, and he really did some due diligence about why the racism was so virulent there and so violent. Like, it had its own particular flavor of hatred that was really intense. And so in that book, what he describes is what can really now be defined as sort of the classic psychological triangle of victim, rescuer, perpetrator. And Tim spoke to where, you have the black man that's allegedly the perpetrator, you have the poor white man that's rescuing the white woman's honor from the black man, and they're all chasing each other around this triangle with the plantation owner running the whole triangle. And as long as these people don't understand, that triangle is allowed to perpetuate, right? But that's the same triangle. We're not too far removed from that today. It's the same triangle, and it has all of the same sort of implications that happen in these kinds of triangles when you talk about it from a psychological perspective.
That's tough. That's tough, man. True or false? Due process is only for white people, especially the stereotypical hero, the doctor, the soldier, the fireman, the police officer. It's a tough question to ask. Get to your phone lines right now if you want to answer it. 844-55-1.
I want to talk.
I think Whitney has a question.
I do have a question, but I kind of wanted to touch on Dr. Bryant's question about white women. It kind of like when I saw the cover of Vogue with LeBron James, who is a ton of young black men's idol, and they were so excited that he's on the cover of Vogue. This is groundbreaking, but yet he has, the young skinny white model in his arms and he's screaming like a gorilla. That I was upset about it. Like, everybody thought that this was so great that, a black guy is on the cover of Vogue, but he's being portrayed as what, white society, I guess, looks at black men. So I guess it just made me think of that, I guess. It just kind of pissed me off again.
You're talking about, that particular picture you're talking about of LeBron James, that picture is based off of an older picture, and it's actually King Kong.
That's what it reminded me of, like a gorilla.
Isn't that crazy?
It just kind of didn't sit well with me. But I have a question for Veronica and Tim. You guys... Oh, are we still on?
I think we lost Tim and Veronica,
okay.
but they're coming back. We got them right now. Who is that? Veronica. Whitney Tabor has a question for you.
Hey, Veronica. Love all of your everything always. I just had a question. Do you think blacks need white people's help in breaking down white supremacy?
Ooh. Eesh.
I think that black people are in no position to break down white supremacy. That's why I think Tim's work is so important. I think that white people are not. If we've marched, we've protested. Like George Frazier says, you either have to kill him or compete with him. You ain't going to kill him. And I don't think you are going to convince them to do anything different, right? So I think that we have to leave them alone to do what they do. And we have to figure out how we are going to be autonomous and self-sustaining.
But do you do that? But let me just say this, Veronica. Let me say this. Do you do that in an absolute way? I think you do that for those who are problematic to the peace process, who are problematic to the rebuilding process. Because throw racism out the window. There are good people in every race. Why don't all of the good people in all of the races get together and say, fuck all you bad people who are holding us back, who keep us, in the Appalachians. I'm from Chattanooga, right? Who keep us, back in that old mentality. So why not all the good people get together and work it out, right?
My only challenge is that one of the things that I see is a fundamental dynamic, and I'm in these conversations, like I said, all over the country, in black spaces and places. There tends to be a posture in our community where we keep asking the white man's permission to do everything. That's the problem.
Black victimization, right?
We're in with ourselves and with each other. I am not opposed to being collaborative and having allyship, but we tend to default to that sometimes too much, and I think it's to our detriment because we never develop the internal fortitude, the testicular fortitude, the inner wherewithal to be independent, sovereign, and functioning on our own because we're too used to asking permission.
Tim, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think that's right on point. I mean, the way I answer the question, and, I've written about this and talked about it before. The very first speech that I ever gave when I got out on the road doing this work around the country was, now that I'm looking at my calendar, I'm going to tell you what, it was 20 years ago today.
Wow.
And I was in Chicago, and I was speaking at Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago. And I was speaking to a class, a sociology class, and there was a white woman who had asked, she said something, and she was real nervous. You could tell she was nervous. And I did my talk, and it's the first talk I've ever given on the road, and she hits me with, she says, I'd really love to do this work that you do. I think it's really inspiring, but, I'm afraid that black people won't trust me and they won't like me. And how do you deal with that? Do you think black people trust you and like you? I'm like, I don't know. You'd have to ask some black people. I'm like, I have no idea how to answer that question. I said, here's what I know. I said, I work in black communities. At the time, I was doing community organizing in mostly black public housing communities in New Orleans. I said, to be honest with you, I have really good relationships with the folks I work with, but do they trust me? I don't know. If I were them, I wouldn't trust me. I said, to be honest, I don't really know how they could trust some 26-year-old white man, Tulane graduate. I'm sure they hadn't had real good relationships with folks like that in the past. So I said, I would expect them to be a little bit skeptical, but that doesn't mean that I don't do the work. And then it was interesting. There was a young black woman in the back row who had her hand up, like as soon as this white woman asked her question, this black woman's hand was up. And I said, I got to call on her because I want to hear what she has to say. So I called on this woman. And this young African-American woman says, look, make no mistake, we don't trust you and we do not like you. And it was a perfect moment, right? Because the white woman, first off, she came unglued, right? She was like, see, that's what I mean. Like, she's all nervous and she's starting to cry and all that stuff that folks do. But I didn't miss a beat. I'm like, I looked at the young woman, and I think to some extent, the young black woman that said that was hoping to get a reaction out of me, like a hurt reaction, because she got it out of the white woman in the class. But it didn't bother me. I said, listen, number one, I'm sorry you feel that way because we don't know each other. And, it never is nice to have somebody assume that you're not real when you think you are. But I said, that's cool. I said, I'm sure that you don't have a whole lot of great historical connection to people that look like me in this city. And I'm like, and I'm fully aware of why that is. And I get that. I said, I don't take it personally. I said, here's the thing I need for you to know is I don't do this for you. Mm-hmm. And it was an interesting moment, right? Because I said, let me clarify. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm saying I'm fully convinced that black and brown folks can liberate themselves from white supremacy. So in answer to the question, do black and brown peoples need white people? I said, I think the answer is no. You don't necessarily need us to be involved in the struggle. I said, now, it might help in the sense that it might help, weaken the resistance of the dominant group a little bit. Like we can work as like the underground, right? To sort of weaken the resistance and soften up the resistance so that people of color who lead the struggle can be more successful. I mean, it might help for us to do the work, but I said, ultimately, look, I have enough faith in black and brown peoples to believe that you're capable of figuring out with or without my involvement the strategies to liberate yourself. Here's what I don't know. I don't know who's going to liberate white people from white supremacy. And It's not your job. I said, it's not your job to liberate me and the children that I may have one day and who I now do have at the time I did not. I said, it's not your job to save my people. I said, here's my thing, is I believe white supremacy endangers all life on the planet. And as somebody who is living on this planet, and I believe that white supremacy is at the root of war and resource exploitation and the ecological crisis and all of that stuff, then I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it to save all of our lives. And so in that regard, the answer to the question is black people and brown people do not need white folks to end white supremacy, but we as a human species need all hands on deck to end white supremacy for the sake of life on the planet. That I know is true.
Wow. And a lot of the black psychology around accepting help from other races comes from one seminal moment, and that's the Malcolm X moment, when the white lady approaches Malcolm and says, I want to help. How can I help? And what's captured in the movie is, no, you can't help us. Right? If you want to help us, stay away, or no, you can't help us. Whatever his response was you can't help.
Yeah, but he said that in 61.
Right, but people don't realize later on, what did he say, Tim? Later on, they don't get this part. So what else did he say?
What he said in the last year of his life was what Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture later said. It's what the folks in SNCC later said, which was, you can't be involved directly in our part of the struggle, but you have to go talk to your people. And what Malcolm said was is that he wished that he had told that young woman. I believe that was when he was at Harvard. That somebody came up to him. He wishes that he had the insight at that time. This was all before he had gone to Mecca, before he made Hajj. That he wished he'd had the foresight to tell her, go work with your people, because that was the thing that SNCC later on in '67, when white folks, many of whom had been in SNCC since the very early days of SNCC, were expelled from the group. And it was a big thing. And there's still people debating whether or not that was the right move. But regardless, it's not like they just kicked them out and said, we don't need you. It's not like they just said, go away. We don't want to know from you anymore. What they told the white folks, who especially Bob and Dottie Zellner, who'd been in the movement a long time, Bob had been the first white field secretary of SNCC beginning in '63, said, we need you to go work with your folks. And that's what they did. That's what they did. And to me, that's always been the charge to white folks, that the idea that white folks have no role to play in it is completely ahistorical. It's not what Malcolm believed. It's not what Stokely Carmichael believed. It's not what SNCC believed. It's not what Ella Baker believed. It's not what Huey Newton believed. I mean, you go through the litany of sort of black heroes and sheroes in the last 30, 40 years, 50 years of the movement, and none of them really believed that. What they did believe, however, was that white folks had a very narrow role to play. That is to say, rather than drifting around looking for the kumbaya moment to hone in on what black folks are doing, we need to be going and challenging our people. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing real sexy work. Like, it doesn't mean that we're going to be at the rally giving the speech. You know, it doesn't mean that we're going to...
Did we lose him?
Hello?
Let's make sure we get Tim back. Jesus!
He was, I'm like right on my edge of the seat, like, wait. Nope.
Listen, You're listening to the Voice of Reason on Dash Radio, Hot Button Radio. This is what I need you guys to do. Listen, go to my Twitter account, which is @ZoWilliams. That's @ZO Williams. Tweet your responses. I will read them live on the air. I've got questions. The hell is going on in Selma? The 50th anniversary. We're marching? What are we marching for? What does it represent? We got a black president, a black sitting president. I wonder, why wasn't the first act of his presidency to make the voter registration, the civil rights voter registration that Martin Luther King marched for? Why don't you just make that permanent? Why does it always have to consistently be renewed? If we want to fight racism, right? Wouldn't that have been an act of, hey, right out the gate, this is wrong. You don't get to renew it because they black, right? And does that Voters' Right Act or Civil Rights Act, does that only deal with black folk? Does it deal with Asians? Does it deal with Latinos? Does it deal with... As the black president, shouldn't that have been his first act of his presidency? Was to say, nope, blacks get to vote all the time. We don't have to renew it every few years. You know, every few years it's hanging over our heads. If you don't get out and participate, you could lose the right to vote, black people.
Are you there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got you, Tim. We got you, bro.
Okay.
Pardon the phone lines, my friend.
Sorry, I got cut off again. It's probably my phone. I get like one bar of Verizon. You know, it's like they say, can you hear me now? And the answer is no.
No,
I cannot. Not today. Not yesterday. I can't hear you. So I just got in on what you were just talking about. But, you know, the thing about the Voting Rights Act that's important. I mean, first of all, let's be clear. The Voting Rights Act is not what gives black people the right to vote. The right to vote is guaranteed as a result of constitutional amendments, particularly the 15th Amendment to the Constitution. So whether or not the Voting Rights Act is renewed does not determine whether there is a constitutionally protected, quote-unquote, right to vote. Now, it does have an effect on whether or not that right is given substance. That is to say, the right can be there, but if the Voting Rights Act is not renewed or if it is weakened, as the Supreme Court has done by removing Section 5 of the Act, then it may end up being a dead, meaningless right in the sense that the South now, and not even just the South, there are jurisdictions outside the South which, ever since the court weakened the Act a year and a half ago, now they can make changes like photo ID requirements, like getting rid of early voting, like reducing the number of voting machines, whatever it is they want to do in certain black districts. They can do that without having to get Justice Department approval. They used to have to get pre-clearance, and the court said, oh, we don't need that now because, and the argument they made, you know, which some listeners will know, they made the argument, that John Roberts, Supreme Court Chief Justice, said, well, we don't need preclearance because now in states like Mississippi, you got black voters turning out at a higher rate than white voters. Okay, 2 points. Number one, that's only been for the last 2 presidential elections. That isn't true in every election. And there may be specific reasons having to do with President Obama and the connection to that presidency that brought that result about. Secondly, to make the argument that black folks are voting in high numbers now, so we don't need the Voting Rights Act, is like saying, and this is what Ruth Bader Ginsburg said in her dissent, that's like saying if you're out in a rainstorm and you got an umbrella and you're not getting wet, you don't need the umbrella anymore, right? I mean, the umbrella is why you're not getting wet. So to get rid of the umbrella, you're going to get wet. You get rid of the Voting Rights Act, or you weaken it by getting rid of Section 5, and all those things that states want to do to suppress the vote will now become legal. So there will still technically be a 15th Amendment right that is in place, but it isn't going to be effectuated just like it was not been in place since the passage of that amendment. But we know that up until 1965, it meant very little. So, and that's the key.
So Veronica and Tim, how do we troubleshoot or problem solve, quote unquote, white privilege / black victimization? Because on the one hand, not all black people are lazy. I know that that's one of the stereotypes that was put out there. But there are black people who pride themselves on victimizing themselves and making excuses and blaming the system. And yes, the system is what it is. But how do we troubleshoot both ends of that? Tim?
I want to speak to that because I've had direct experience with that. And insofar as when I did, Tim spoke earlier about, having a deficit model of dealing with black folks. Like, it's all of your pathology, it's all of your trauma. You can't, you're a victim and you can't be helped. I did a bunch of work all over the country for a lot of the major foundations where we went into inner city communities, toughest cities in America. And we taught case managers and social workers that had historically been working in a case management deficit-based model. We taught them financial coaching skills. And then they turned around and coached these folks that were coming out of welfare, out of poverty, didn't have a key, didn't have a car, some of them were mandatory sentence, right? And we gave these case managers the skills of coaching. Okay, what did that do? So instead of sitting down with a person and taking an inventory of all of the problems that they've been in and all the difficulty that they've been in and having them focus on their deficits, instead we had them sit down with folks and have them create a vision for their lives, for their finances, for their future, for their family, right, that they could then begin to drive accountability for, right?
Wow.
So instead of lowering the bar, we raised the bar. Now, when we first did this, the thing that was so crazy about it is all the foundations went crazy because when you start holding people to a higher standard and a higher vision for themselves, what first happens is that if they haven't really had that level of accountability, they drop off at first, which makes the numbers look really weird for the funders. So then when they come back in, they're completely bought in, right? And they're self-sustaining, and they're self-directed, and they're self-driven. And so when it was all said and done, and we had toured the country working in these very tough communities, and they did an evaluation of it afterwards. They said an independent evaluation came around. They said the level of agency and self-sufficiency and the way that people even language driving their own results in life was profound. Wow. So it kind of comes down in the middle of what, like Bill Cosby says, it's like you got to hold people to a higher standard, not the way that he's talking about, but I'm talking about in the way of getting in there with them, helping them figure out a vision that they're inspired by, that they can, a practical vision that they can then begin to go execute on. It makes a huge difference, and it gets huge results, and it's proven on the ground in the toughest cities.
Veronica, what do you think about, and I like what you say, holding them to a higher standard, but would that not then make them authors of their desired standard, as opposed to assimilating to a standard that was a standard of success or a standard of achievement that was created by someone else, right?
Right. We taught coaches to help them design their own outcomes, their own vision, their own, and then to create a roadmap and a plan and an ability to get there. And so what happened is, and people were afraid, well, you can't let people dream like that. You can't let people see that big picture. What if they fail? And that was the big, the whine until we got it done and we proved it, right? It's like, you can't let people dream that big. It's like, no, you lock people into a vision, and then you give incremental steps, and you support them in executing those incremental steps themselves. Because then they will, I promise, and it happened every time, they far outshone, outperformed, they started to blow the metrics off of the evaluation, because they did way more than anybody thought was possible for them, because it was self-directed and there was agency. So it can be done.
Right.
Wow.
It has been done.
That's just it. I mean, what we're really talking about is the mentality of the community organizer. You know, the community organizer mentality is one that says they're not there to solve the people's problem. They're there to help the people see their own power and their own agency. And good community organizers do that by challenging the community to go above what's expected, to meet those standards that the larger society clearly doesn't expect of them, and to then have accountability structures in place. And when you do that, and a point about having incremental steps is critical. When I was a community organizer, we used to have, I remember talking to a guy who'd been doing it for years, and I went in there, and I was fresh-faced, young organizer. And I said, what are y'all working on, And I expected he was going to say, oh, we're working on ending white supremacy, or we're working on ending, economic exploitation and poverty. And that's not what he told me, right? Instead, he said, we're working on getting a stoplight at that four-way stop. And I said, and my first reaction was, wait, what? A stop sign or a stoplight? What? Why do you need that? Because that didn't seem big picture enough to me. 26, 25-year-old, 24-year-old white dude. I'm like, wait, that's not system changing, And he said, well, a couple of reasons. Number one, there have been 3 kids hit on their bikes. So we need a stoplight so kids don't get killed. That's number one. He said, but number two is we can get the stoplight, right? And I said, okay. And he said, well, you got to understand, a victory is really important for this community. Right? To be able to set a goal that we know is achievable. It's not going to be real hard to get the city council to cough up the money to give us that light. We just have to demand it. We demand it enough times, they're going to give us the money. Then our people are going to say, oh, we can win. We can actually win. And the minute that we know we can win one thing, then we start thinking about, okay, what's the next thing, right? Then you set another goal and another goal and another goal, and pretty soon the people believe in themselves, right? That is the traditional classic community organizer mentality that unfortunately many of our nonprofit agencies, particularly our foundations, right, they don't come out of that world. They fund that world, but they don't really understand that world. And so it's really important for us to be able to have that mentality. We bring that mentality to our work in the community, and I think we'll see that kind of empowerment that's not a deficit model, that's very much a challenge model. Wow. And one that we can sustain.
Wow. Listen, I'm going to let the listeners come up for a breath of air. You guys have taken them deeper than Atlantis. I love it. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. But before I go, true or false, black folk will never trust any other race until we learn to trust ourselves. 844-55-1. Get to your phone lines. I see you, LB from Connecticut. The phone lines is heating. 844-55-1. Voice of Reason Dash Radio. We'll be back. Deuces. Man, the Voice of Reason is not just an interpersonal relationship show. We'll get to those topics too. The intimacy, the cheating, the monogamy. We'll get to that. But relationships in a broad sense as well. How we interface culture to culture, neighborhood to neighborhood, state to state, right? Philosophy to philosophy. This is an interactive relationship help desk across the board. Listen, if you're just tuning in to the Voice of Reason on Hot Button Radio, Dash Radio. You got to download the Dash Radio app. Go to your iPhone, go to the iStore, download the Dash Radio app. It's free. Jesus, doesn't cost anything. And the phone line is free as well, 844-55-1, 844-55-1. Call us, let us know what's happening. You got it. Once you download the app, then you go to talk. Go to the genre talk, and then click Hot Button Radio. I mean, we got the hottest topics. We're on the edge right now. And we're doing this type of show because ultimately we want to create the dialogue and we want the dialogue to continue. But above and beyond that, we have the courage to have the conversation in the first place. There's a lot of people who refuse to even talk. People don't even want to talk about it. So we got to have the conversation. With that said, we've got Tim Wise. Yo, man, he's in the building. If you don't know about him, Google him.
And I got a question, though.
Can I introduce Veronica first?
Of course.
Cheyenne,
Why
Jesus.
not?
She's got questions.
There's
I
that
got
enmity
questions.
between black men and women again.
Calm it down.
From slavery.
Absolutely. We are
You just gonna cut me off, woman?
We're the epitome of it. You and I. Yes.
Just gone.
I'm gonna cut my foot off. No, anyway. We've got Veronica Conway, world-renowned transformational coach. She's incredible. She created a neuro-linguistic program that undoes Willie Lynch. I just said a mouthful. She created an NLP program that undoes Willie Lynch. I mean, every black man in America should sleep with that headphones on at night, just on replay. She's in the building as well. Now, Cheyenne, it's your turn to ask your question.
Thank you, Zoe. Goodness. So my question, Tim, Veronica, does white supremacy make the white woman appear more attractive to black men and superior to black women?
Wow.
Ooh.
Wait, that's a heavy question. Wait. Tim, I know you got to run. Do you have time to smack us in the mouth with the truth on that question?
Yeah, I can be pretty brief on that. I mean, I think that white supremacy creates a beauty standard that is then sold and marketed as a matter of daily routine to everybody living within that society or within a world that is influenced by that society. So there's no question that that is going to impact at least some folks' interpretations other than just white folks. It's going to also influence certain folk of color's interpretations of beauty, not only potentially in terms of the way that black men may view white women versus women of color, but also the way that women of color will view themselves relative to white women. So we know we've got this increasingly common phenomenon around the non-white world, both in sub-Saharan Africa, also throughout many Asian nations, of women of color seeking to change, whether it is by very dangerous acidic-based dyes and pigment creams and things that are skin lightening creams. This was not happening in sub-Saharan Africa 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. This was not happening.
Wow.
In Asia, in Asian nations, you did not historically have Asian women who were trying to change the fold of their eye to be more Western, right? So in other words, as white supremacy has been globalized and commoditized, it creates not only a certain notion of desire on the part of heterosexual men in terms of what kind of women or what standard of beauty they desire, but it also affects the way that women see themselves.
Okay,
Wow.
and just
Wow.
wait. So really quick, and so do
Hey, you know he has to leave.
Oh, Tim, do you have time
It's
just
cool.
for one more?
I'll do a
I had a
follow-up. on that.
question
Go
for
ahead.
Tim.
Really quick.
Damn.
No, Tim. So really quick. So do you think when a white man is with a black woman that he feels as though he has downgraded, or that he's settling when it's reversed?
I don't know. I mean, I that's a deep psychological question that I'm utterly unqualified to answer. I think that there are. Here's what I would suggest. I think there are some white men who, in romantic relationships with black women, it's just perfectly genuine. It's based on love. It's based on the same thing any relationship would be, and there's none of that in play. On the other hand, and none of that in terms of feeling downgrading or settling. On the other hand, look, I think it would be naive to deny that there are white men for whom at least initial attractions. Now, if you're in a long-term relationship, that changes over time, but initial attractions to women of color could also be based on the exoticization of women of color.
Wow.
Right? Whether that is the exoticization of Asian women as docile, whether that is the exoticization of black women as hypersexual, whatever it is, right? So that may be part of an initial. That doesn't mean that every relationship that's been going on for years is still rooted in that, but that could be an initial thing that I think. That's why I think that when folks are in relationships across lines of race, ethnicity, this has got to be talked about. Right,
Absolutely.
you can't not talk about it. I'm never going to be one of those people that says, "Oh, you should never do that." I know there are people who trip on that, and that's their thing. That's not me. I mean, my thing is, look, it's just like if you're in any kind of relationship, you got to put everything on the table to tend the room. And when there's an interracial relationship or an interfaith relationship, and you have both people real committed to their faith, or you need to talk about, just like frankly any heterosexual relationship, men and women better talk about issues of sex and gender expectations and sexism, or else it's going to cause problems potentially.
Wow.
And then you add to that the interracial component. If you have folks of color and white folks in relationships across racial lines, and they don't ever talk about race because they're tripping on the whole colorblind, all we need is love thing. Yeah, that's not going to work. Like that is highly unlikely to work if you don't ever talk about that thing that the society is trying to put between you. The society is trying to do that. So you have to deal with that piece. And I think that sometimes, folks haven't always thought that through. Folks just fall in love and they're like, oh, it's the same thing with transracial adoption, right? You have white families that adopt kids of color and they just figure, all we need is love. All we need is to love these children. Everything will be fine. And they don't prepare them as people of color for a world of white supremacy. And then you end up doing damage to kids if you're not willing to go there. If you're willing to go there, you can do some real positive. But if you don't want to go there, you do some real damage.
Wow. Listen, Tim Wise, where can the listeners of The Voice of Reason find you, connect with you, get your books, just get hip to what you do? Where can they find you? Websites, all of that.
Yeah, the website is www.timwise.org. The Twitter is @TimJacobWise. And then there's also a official Facebook page, but I don't remember you have to search for it. You got to be careful. There's one that's like, I hate Tim Wise. That's not the one.
That's not the one. Right.
We're not on that.
Yeah, it's the official one. It's got the better numbers and the nicer people. So check that one out.
Wow. Hey, man, we really appreciate you taking the time, man, to come to the new Zoe Williams Voice of Reason show, man. We would love to have you back anytime you're free. And like I said, man, we appreciate your knowledge.
Thank you,
I'll
Tim.
make it happen, man.
Yeah,
Thank you
what
so
you
much.
doing?
Thank you all.
All right. So
Thanks.
That was Tim Wise. Veronica Conway, we still got you on the line. Do you mind taking in a few calls? We got Heka activated. She just joined the show. That's our celebrity psychic. She just joined the show. Really quickly, we're gonna take some callers and then we'll get back to the subject. I mean, the subject is crazy.
I got a couple questions too.
Goodness, the subject. Can I get it to you one more time? The topic: how much is the black man and woman responsible for our current socioeconomic situation here in America? Crazy. We were talking about white privilege. We had, esteemed anti-racist essayist Tim Wise. He just left the show. If you missed it, it was hot monkey lava. With that, LB from Connecticut, you're on the line. Talk to me, man. The Voice of Reason is in the building. LB,
where you
LB is done. Let's go to Mike from D.C. Mike from D.C., you're on the line.
Oh, hey, man, what's up? So, hey, Cheyenne Bryant, hey, Miss Tabor, what's going on?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, my first question is, do you think the only way our sisters in the black community, well, just black women in general, can only come back to a space of authenticity and essentialness is only if, do you think the only way black women could come back to that is if white people can renounce their throne of superiority? Because it seems like the white man's rule is the black woman's rule of thumb with dealing with black men.
Oh,
we have to take over this system.
So you said, because you're breaking up just a little bit, Mike. But let me clarify what you're saying. It sounds like you're saying the black woman is dependent on the white man's system and rule, and you're saying the only way for us to come back as a people is our woman has to renounce her dependence on that system. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, now I'm saying like white supremacy has to renounce their throne of superiority because that's the only.
So white supremacy has to. Okay, I got you. I got you. Hey, man, that's a good question. I don't know. Would you? Like a lot of people, a lot of historians will say, if you do your research, black folk used to run the world, right? Absolutely. Do you think black people wanted to renounce their rulership of the world?
Nope.
How did it happen?
And that goes back to what I said earlier, Zoe, when I said the white people who are benefiting and taking advantage of the white supremacy, what would be the reason, and would they want to, break down that white supremacy? Would that be something they want to be involved in?
Whoever wants to be number two.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Who's going to do that? Here.
And so,
before I throw it to Veronica, that's a good point. Before I throw it to Veronica, we have a Twitter response from my true or false question before I went to break. True or false? Black folk can't trust other races until they learn to trust themselves. Somebody on Twitter, let me see who's this name. These names, these handles be crazy. Sir Nathan, I think, says false. It's the other way around. Black folks won't be able to trust themselves until they stop trusting other races. That was ugly. Veronica, jump in.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because when I work with people, I often tell people, they say, I find myself getting burned. How can I not be so trusting? Trusting is never about trusting the other. Trusting is about trusting your discernment in the presence of who they are. In other words, trusting yourself to know how they going to show up and how they going to keep showing up. One thing that we know for sure is that white folks are not going to give up money, privilege, and all that stuff if they don't have to. They ain't gonna, they haven't, they ain't gonna.
You don't give them a reason to, right?
That's what I'm saying.
No, exactly. And every time we've moved to give them a reason, like with Black Panthers and with any movement that had any potential teeth, they did everything in their power to dismantle those situations. My dad was a victim of that, right? So make no mistake, that's not happening. And anybody that tells you that they're gonna is lying to you.
Wow. Colbert Jr.
So we have to begin to make decisions in light of that reality. What decisions are we going to make for our community and ourselves and with each other in light of that reality?
So we have another Twitter response here. Colbert Jr. They have these weird Twitter handles. I on CJ. He says, we have to build trust with one another and within ourselves first before we start to build up our community. And I guess he's saying if you don't trust yourself, if you don't respect yourself, how are you going to respect those in the community, and how will the community become a resource, for itself and for the world? I think that's an interesting, way to look at it. We've got Heka activated on the line. Heka, have you been able to hear some of the things we've been talking about? Let me brief you really.
Yes, how are you guys tonight?
Hey, Heka.
It's good to see you, Heka, or hear you, Heka.
Yes, I'm great. I have been listening in for the last 25, 30 minutes, I think.
Good. So you're aware that we're talking about how much is the black man and woman responsible for our current socioeconomic situation here in America. I want this to be a solution-based kind of show. What can black people do today, right now, that can say, okay, we know where we live. We know what the obstacles are.
We know.
How do we perform better? How do we raise our own our personal standards? How do we get that up? Heka, give me yours, and then we're going to phone lines, and we're going to take everyone else's answers as well.
Okay, great. I just want to say, I think I have a question to ask as well. I mean, an answer, but a question. But as black people, if we are as powerful as we say that we are, then why is it that we allow white supremacy to hold us down? And I say we because I am a part of this as well. I reincarnated into this black body myself. So why in all of our power can't we?
Do you want me to answer that? I got a great answer for you. I have a great answer for you right now. And it comes from a Twitter follower. Twitter is on fire right now.
Yeah, I got some tweets.
The phone lines are on fire. Twitter is on fire. Listen, the big black beard, I think that's what he says here, the big black beard.
That's my boy.
He says, we are always for sale. He's speaking as a people. We are always for sale. You can't trust salespeople. We sell our kids to public school just so we don't have to pay for childcare. He's saying everything we do is in a bargaining position to the system. And we bargain from a disadvantage. We don't bargain with leverage. Somebody else speak on that. I know Whitney Tabor has some tweets as well.
Yeah,
Whitney?
look, the big black beard, that's my boy. He's hitting me up with all kinds of fire on Twitter. I had a question I posted on my Twitter, and it was, do you feel young black people in America are using victimization as their excuse for not succeeding? And I had, Lionheart23 on my Twitter said, no, I feel old black people use victimization for their failure in teaching the young generation. And I'm
ouch.
Oh, my pop-up ain't listening, because I'm like, wait, I kind of agree a little bit. Like, we learn from you. Everybody's learning. So I do agree with Lionheart23. Thanks for hitting us on Twitter with all your questions.
Wow. We got phone lines. The phone lines are on fire right now. Stay with us, everybody. LB, you're on the line right now. LB from Connecticut. Talk to me, man, about tonight's subject. I'm sure it's been riveting for you, yes?
Absolutely. I want to make 2 points. One point is taken from what happened to me yesterday. I'm in the mall. I came from church, and I'm dressed, I have a coat jacket on, I have a button up, I have a bow tie on, and I'm walking throughout the mall, and people are just looking at me like they've never seen an African-American man dress well. They're looking at me like, oh my God, he's not wearing Jordans and his pants aren't sagging and things like that. I think Heka also made a great point where, we don't have to be victims. Take it from me. I'm a 23-year-old young man. I've worked for Apple. I've worked for Microsoft. And now I'm in a career point where I work for IT for an insurance company. I'm not letting my race hold me back from anything. You know what I mean? I'm not letting that hold me back from anything, because there's so much money in this world. There's so much opportunity in it. I can't look in the mirror and say, because of the color of my skin, I'm going to use that as a crutch or as something that I'm going to let hold me back. I couldn't do that.
Thank you for not.
My mother and my
Thank you.
Yep, my mother and my father raised me way better than to because I'm a black man. That's some sort of reason for me not to have opportunity.
Wow. Go ahead, Cheyenne.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you for sharing. I want to ask you, so if a younger black adolescent or young black man was to ask you, what was your recipe? What struck your resilience? And
Recipe?
Recipe, yes.
Okay, sorry.
So leave me, don't pick on me today, okay? So,
what was your recipe?
I have a southern accent, even though I'm from
She built like she from Texas.
Anyways.
I ain't even gonna lie. Sorry.
Okay.
I digress.
If a young adolescent, a young black man was to ask you what was your recipe, or what strengthened your resilience and got you to develop or adopt the perspective that you have as a black man, what would be something you would say to them?
I think it's wanting to prove people wrong. I grew up obviously I'm from Connecticut. I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where if you look up on, where one of the most dangerous places, it's on the list, top 10. I said to myself as a kid, I said, I cannot be a product of my environment. I cannot let myself be somebody who either ends up in jail or dead. So what I did with myself is I listened to my parents, I listened to my uncles, and I had a good family surrounding around me.
Great, so you had good role models.
Everything that they told me and everything that they were teaching me, I took it and I ran with it. And I graduated from a good college out here in Connecticut. I managed to make it, essentially, in a world where black people necessarily, they don't want to see you make it.
Well,
so.
I have another, I'm going to chime in. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you dressing well as well. But
wow. Okay, Whitney.
No, I'm saying
Whitney's the psychic today.
I do need a new computer. You work for Apple still? No, I'm just playing. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm a funny guy. But one thing that I get annoyed with as a young black person in having the victimization and hearing everybody's issues is, well, I didn't have a daddy, so I don't have a good role model. But as you just dressing well and grinding out of, the gutter, you are a role model for everybody. You don't have to have a daddy. I feel like my brother DJ, he don't have any kids. He don't have any of that, but he is a role model in his community, just as you are. You know,
that's a good point.
I don't care if you didn't have a daddy. You know what's right and wrong, so figure it out.
We've got a lot of Twitter responses. We got phone lines. I just want to get one more phone caller in, and then I'm going to go back to Veronica and Heka on this topic as well. Will from Nashville, you're in the building. Let's holla.
What's going on, Zoe, man? I'm a big fan. I've been on 5150 for a while. I holler at you on Twitter sometimes.
Respect.
But, man, I just seen your post on Facebook. I wasn't listening at first, but then I seen you post the phone, and I said, man, I probably got an answer to this question. But I feel like right now, when I look at my peers, I'm 23, same as the brother before me. I don't feel like we letting it hold us down. I feel like most people my age think the shit is all gravy, and really think that we on a equal playing field. But through research on my behalf, I noticed that this system was set up to hold us back so we can be equal. You know what I'm saying? Like these young boys don't know their full potential. I feel like every child needs their father. I feel like even the little girls need their dads too.
Man, Will, let me just tell you, man, you just dropped some heavy science. So 15 minutes before the show starts, I get a phone call. Right? It's my youngest. He's 13. Now, I just went up to his school and intellectually gangbanged the whole administration. I went in there on 10.
You gotta do it like that.
I went in there on 10. Let me because you what you just said sparked this. So check this out, Will. So he called me and goes, Dad, I forgot these slips. Right? He was supposed to have some slips where he takes it to every class and they got to sign off to say he did all the work. He made up his tardies, and then he brings that slip filled out back home. Right? Dad, I forgot my slips. I said, word. Okay. Let me tell you how society works. Society doesn't forget. If you don't go to court, if you have a court date and you don't make it to court, right? You get a FTA. They don't forget to file that FTA, that failure to appear. See, society is designed to capitalize on your laziness. So you're not taking school serious. You have to understand something about American society. We're going to make money whether you integrate properly into the system or not. It's your choice. Now, you can become an employee, you can become a business owner, whatever, but you're going to have to do that via education. The educational system is integrated directly into the economy. You don't go try to get a job without a high school diploma, right? You're going to get paid what you're worth in their eyes. So I said, you think it's cool to be 13 and forgetting shit, and that's a part of your life. You live in an environment where it's kind of lax and you think you can forget. But society will never let you forget to pay your ticket. You forget to show up to court, that's a bench warrant right there. Failure to appear. You forget to pay your ticket, it doubles. Society is automated based on your forgetfulness. And then when you stand in front of the judge, your ignorance is what really locks you into the teeth of the beast, right? A judge will tell you straight up, ignorance is no excuse of the law. You can't say I didn't know. Yeah, I'm glad you didn't know, but that don't stop me from bringing the full weight of the law down on your ass. And that's our problem. We think we can coast. We think, like homeboy said, we act like it's all good. It ain't really, there's no sense of urgency. I mean, it's a tough situation that we're in right now. Listen, I got to take a quick break, but I want to hear from all the listeners out there. Keep tweeting at Zoe Williams. I will read them. Call in 844-55-1. That's 844-55-1. I want to go deeper, black folk.
Hot button, all folk. Let's go.
I want to go deeper. How does the term hustle hold black people back with regards to prosperity?
Let's go.
Yo, it's fire up in here. Y'all not knowing.
Hot button.
It's fire up in here.
crazy that it's called Hot Button Radio.
Come on, man. I'm trying to set it on fire. I'm going to ask all the difficult questions that you don't want to answer, that you don't want to deal
You
with.
don't even want to hear sometimes.
Black people always making excuses, right? Yeah, but there's some reasons. I always say there's a difference between an excuse and a reason, right? If you can reason something, that means you're using your intelligence. If you're making excuses, that means you're using your mental agility to avoid responsibility. And there's certain things that we are responsible for. Come on, man. It's okay to renounce self-hate. It's okay to renounce apathy. It's okay to renounce non-cooperation and mistrust. It's okay if we want a better society, if we want better children. It's okay to have the balls, the testicular fortitude to want to write our own narrative. It's okay to write our own success narrative, our own relationship narrative. Let me get off the soapbox. Voice of Reason in the building, Dash Radio, Hot Button Radio. It's what we do. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. Heka activated on the line. Veronica Conway. Get to your phone lines, 844-55-1. That's 844-55-1. Heka activated. I need to hear your voice. Chime in on this. Chime in on what we're talking about right now.
Yes, of course. I think, in all honesty, we have more seminars, we have more marches, we have more meetings on how to change Black people, always how to rehabilitate Black people, always how to get Black people out of this mess.
Heka, babe,
yes?
Don't forget, you add one more, we got more haters.
Haters.
Now finish what you were saying. We got more marches, but we also got more haters. The haters will march with you, arm in arm. Go ahead, Heka.
Okay. Yeah, but we have more of this stuff on a daily basis trying to rehabilitate. It's always as if Black people need help. Black people have to get help. Black people are horrible, so horrible that they need all this help. And we're doing all this marching. And I'm telling you, I've been here almost 40 years. And ever since I can remember, we've been marching. We've been having meetings. We've been trying to figure out how to get Black people out of Black people's mess.
Yes.
And I just think it's crazy that we're continuously giving our energy to this thing. The more we give our energy to something, the more that energy grows. When we fail to realize that the very thing that we're connecting to, or the very thing that was put in place to hold us in this spot while we're doing all the marching and having all the meetings and all that, we're later on going to connect back with Jesus when Jesus was the thing that got us there in the first place. We're failing to go to the root of the problem. And until we get to the root of the problem, we're going to forever be dealing with the situation.
Don't you ever say nothing bad about white Jesus.
Go ahead, Heka.
You understand? Pal Gasol ain't never did nothing wrong to you.
I saw him walking on Hollywood Boulevard last weekend.
Well, I'm just saying that we're failing to pull the problem up by the root. And if you don't pull the problem up by the root, guess what? The root is going to continue to grow.
Right.
If you're going to kill it, you're going to have to kill it from the root. That's one of our main problems. And Black people won't get away from it, period.
And I agree, Veronica. Can you talk about the difference between getting rich and getting wealthy? Because I don't think Black people understand that rich is money. Wealthy is meaning. Can you tell the difference between the two for these folk out here listening? This is Black people healing time. Let's go. Go ahead, Veronica.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, we, again, we talk about sort of the psychology and the paradigm of the owned versus the owner. And so because in the last generation, let's say the baby boomer generation, my parents' generation was taught to go to school, get a job, have a long career, and retire. And somebody will pay for your retirement and buy a house and all that kind of stuff. And the truth is that myth came crashing down, especially for Black folks in this last crash, right? We lost more wealth than collectively than any other ethnic group, right? Because we were upside down in our houses, we had all these different situations. So one of the problems is that we don't really understand what it means to have assets. we don't really mean what it understands to have liabilities. Rich, typically, we think of it as sort of being liquid, having enough money to spend at choice. But people that I know that are really wealthy, I know dudes. I've known one dude for 30 years. He's worth $1 billion.
Wow.
And it's all in assets. It's all in land and in factories and in businesses and in real estate and in stocks and then it's all in assets, things that are going to sit and appreciate for you. It's all in art, fine art, right? So so few of us ever get exposed to real wealth, and we approximate wealth for having money to spend, but actually wealth is not about having money to spend. It's about having resources to put away that you can pass down intergenerationally.
Wow. And a lot of people don't understand. There are a lot of really, really rich people who are internally impoverished. Again, when white people get... hold on one second, Veronica. When white folk get bread, they then go search for meaning. Because you can get to a point where you got so much damn money, it don't matter. It's tripling and quadrupling and sextupling and Googling itself, right? Right? Money does that. But guess what? Now I need to find out what does my life mean? And so many black people, listen to the content of the lyrics, because the content of the lyrics display the current social game rules. She liked me because my rims spin, or because of the ice on my wrist, or then that means she don't like you. That means she not fucking with you.
She like your rims, not
you. You ain't shit.
Your rims are kind of whack too.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Without your rims,
if she likes you because of your car,
conditional.
Do you feel what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
She not fucking with you. She fucking with your resources. And if you run out of resources, bye-bye you.
Because that's her condition. The condition's gone, she's gone.
You feel what I'm saying? The Twitter's on fire right now. The phone lines are on fire. We have Maureen from VA in the building. Maureen, holla at us.
Hi, King Zo.
King Zo. You know of me then. How are you?
She called the wrong.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi. So I wanted to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What if like you said, women need to follow the men, but the black men don't have power? What if all black women got off of social services? Like no food stamps, no Medicaid, no Section 8, and we banded together and took care of each other. Would that break down white supremacy?
It would. It would in a lot of ways. Because Veronica,
that's what holds a lot of women.
I love that question.
Veronica is right with you on this. Watch how we tie all of this together.
Hello, Ms. Conway. How are you?
Watch how we tie all of this together. What happens? Hold on, Veronica. Hold on. Let me set you up, babe. Let me set Jesus. Can I set you up? Jesus Christ. Veronica, what happens when sisters, and when I say sisters, I mean women of all races. What happens when women really start believing unconditionally in the man they choose and love? What the fuck happens then?
Well, if anybody's been listening to the shows with Nchalma recently, what I would say is that when men and women get together and actually complete that circuit, that energetic electromagnetic circuit, they become reality creators. They can create anything at will. You would be amazed at what can be created in conscious relating and conscious sex. We have forgotten that power, and so therefore, because we've forgotten that power, and because we've been trained and indoctrinated to be self-hating and to be other-hating, we have forgotten that all that we need actually exists right there in the circuitry between a man and a woman.
Wow.
It exists right there. But
So if she starts,
forget that at our peril.
So if she starts believing, we start building. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
She starts believing, she starts believing, we start building. Like, now he can say, I'm going to go get a paper route. I believe in that. I'm going to deliver pizzas. I believe in that. Okay, and then I'm going to become an entrepreneur. I'm going to start building on. I believe in that. What happens when that type of, again, I always say masculine, feminine energy works just like a battery. The positive side is the masculine side. The feminine side, right? Guess what? They say the feminine side, before the feminine side used to be called neutral. Now it's called negative. But it's not negative in the sense of bad. It's more neutral. Why is it neutral? First off, within the battery, all of the power is in the feminine side.
The negative side.
And the man side, the part that sticks out on the battery, all it does is direct the current. So behind every good dude, there's a good woman. Behind every great man, there's a great woman. Why? Because she believed in him. She energized what. So listen to what the sister just said, Maureen from VA. If all of the sisters got off of social services,
help take care of one another,
and said, we're going to do this as a community. Listen, when you got your sisters believing in you, when women are believing in the men, now we begin to build. When she believes, we build. It's really that simple.
Okay. Simple. I just have one comment, and it'll be a really quick comment.
Go ahead, Heka.
Feel like women have been believing in men all along. Men need to believe in themselves.
Come on now, Heka.
Yes.
When men start to believe in themselves,
Good stuff.
then we can get out of this mess.
I
Women have
ain't
been
mad.
believing in you guys forever.
I think sometimes, but you know what? I think
we've been taking crap from you. We've been doing a whole lot of this stuff ever since we've been here on this earth.
Wait, Heka. Let me ask you this question.
Okay, my 3 seconds up.
No, Heka, no. It's about to get extended because you said something powerful. Because I think also Heka brings up another great point, and that is sometimes in the black community, not just the black community, men in general, we think you believing in us is the same as you taking our shit.
Right.
A lot of men. You don't question me. You understand? Sometimes you need a really good woman to question you.
And that's what I was.
You know how valuable that shit is?
Can I chime in?
Oh, chiming in.
And I think that's the problem right now. That's the reason why men are feeling as if women don't believe in them, because we've gotten to a place where we're no longer willing to take the shit.
Right. And I want to add on
it's
to...
not that we don't believe in you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Heka. I was going to add on to what you were saying. Go ahead and finish.
What I was saying, it's not that we don't believe in you, but we're no longer going to allow you to walk all over us and treat us like crap while we are believing in you.
So it's bi-directional. If she believes in you, you in turn must respect her.
Right, and support and believe in her as well.
Right.
It should be reciprocated. And also part of believing and supporting someone is being receptive and open to your woman assisting you and guiding you.
Knowing where it's coming from.
Knowing where it's coming from, a loving place, a guiding place. Not emasculating him, but guiding and instructing and helping and appropriately confronting him when
But
it's
you can't
necessary.
talk to him like you're a Rottweiler.
No, of course not.
Whitney.
I just said do not emasculate him. Exactly.
No, you need to.
You fucking up. You not listening neither. You not listening. He don't be listening.
And I said it 10 times. I'm not going to repeat myself again.
Whitney?
Whatever. Don't be hating. That is a form of support. Like my constructive criticism or nagging or whatever you guys want to call it.
Don't nag.
I'm trying to help you out just because you can't take a little. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm the leader, goddammit. You can't help the leader.
Saying.
Can I jump in here a little bit with this? Because really the best, and this is when we did the work on the ground, and like I said, in the toughest cities in America, when I've built teams to multi-million-dollar companies, when I've sent my kids through $1 million in private school education, there was one thing that that was common to all of that. And that is that you sit down with one another and you create a vision for the family, for the team, for the organization, for the client. That is, and you create a vision. And most people don't have really any idea what vision means. They think it's like a hope or a preference. A vision is something that is so lit up in your nervous system that you can't stop moving towards it. And then when a couple comes together, they need to have a vision that includes both of their visions. In other words, usually what happens is that in a relationship, I have my agenda and he has his agenda, and we don't understand how we're operating at cross purposes. If we can sit down together and design this outcome, this meta outcome that includes all of our needs, and then we hold each other accountable to getting it, then game over. And that's how high-performing teams work. That's how high-performing families is to answer to the vision and design that. But it has to be intentional. You have to sit down and be intentional about it. It is not accidental. It's absolutely intentional.
Wow. Listen, on Twitter, at @illwill_711, Black people need to adopt that Marshawn Lynch mentality.
Yeah.
We do too much talking. We need to be about that action.
Beast mode.
Right? We need to be in beast mode. We need to be about that action. But I'm going to tell you something about what Veronica is saying right now when she's talking about team building. You can't build a team if the team members don't respect each other. It's just tough. Sinister Mephisto on Twitter says, how does one attain urgency without an intrinsic push? We are looking for tools or looking for roots using shitty tools. The tools don't even get tested. In other words, we just throwing shit against the wall to see if it sticks, to see if it works. But let me just say this. When discovering, sometimes you have to throw shit against the wall to see if that's an experiment. And if it does stick, then you create a system out of what you did to get that particular effect. Again, we're about to take another quick break, but before I do, wait, how much time we got? Do I got 1 minute?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
No, I got a caller that I need to get to.
Get to it. Let's do it. Get to it.
Okay, I'm going to take the caller and then I'm going to go to break.
Hot button. Let's go.
Mr. Simon from Los Angeles is in the building. Holla at me, sir.
What's going on, folks?
Hello.
Yo, Zo, Dash. That's a good look for you, bro.
You figure deals me, pimp.
I don't even know what that means, but I like it.
Righteous?
So check this out. As far as, the white-black relations, things like that, a lot of times I understand that it's about making them feel comfortable, especially when you're engaging in conversation about whatever it might be. For instance, I know we're short on time. At one time, I was a waiter, and I was serving tables. And from time to time, if I had some white guests, I would flip the script, and I'd actually talk to them like, hey, guys, how's it going? Good afternoon. Nice outfits, blah, blah, blah. I'd switch it up without being condescending. But the thing was crazy. They would start to engage me. How's your day? Where are you from? What school did you go to? And then on another time, I go back to how I am, which is a few more decibels lower, but still with the same respect. Totally different framework. They wouldn't really be engaging. They would just like to serve us. And that's the only thing I really wanted to touch on as far as making them feel comfortable when you're having conversations with them.
Man, I appreciate you, brother, for the call. Thank you for reaching out. Again, if you want to chime in the last 20 minutes, get to your phone lines right now, 844-55-1. That's 844-55-1. You're listening to The Voice of Reason on Dash Radio. It's hot button. We live right now. Get at us. I promise you, this relationship help desk is going to ask the most difficult and uncomfortable questions you've always avoided. We're not going to let you get away from them. Questions like, would black male lives begin to matter to other races if we, as black men and people, started respecting black male lives? I mean, there's a section of us that don't give two shakes of a fat rat's ass about another black male life. But yet we ready to march when a police officer takes the life of a black man. This is wrong. This is racist. This is la, 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 la. How can other races respect us if we don't respect ourselves? How can other races do business with us when we don't do business with ourselves? Ugh. How can other races see us as valuable when we don't value ourselves? Ain't a bunch of white people running around with black afro wigs on. But there's sisters running around with blonde straight wigs on, right? Let's just keep it real. Who want to get at this conversation? 844-55-1. 844-55-1. The Zoe Williams, voice of reason, is in the building. I'm having a ball right now. Veronica Conway, Heka activated. Whitney Tabor. Whoop. And Cheyenne Bryant in the building. Hey. Twitter's on fire.
My social media is on fire, so I got to read some
of my responses. What do you have for us? Talk to me.
So I posted a question that says, does white supremacy make white women more attractive to black men? And I have from a Quantrack Quilla. He says, that's a cultivated question. Let me go to him. Sorry, guys. As a convoluted question, white women are attractive irrespective. But I think you're trying to ask about the de facto caste system of whites and blacks, which make white women more desirable.
Caste system.
Thank you.
Caste.
Which make white women more desirable because for a black man to obtain a white woman, he's made it from the black caste of black men.
He's made it.
This is what he was.
In other words,
his response.
She's the prize.
She validates him.
She's the prize.
She's the prize.
So let's understand history.
But I have one more. Can I just say the last one? It's from a white man.
You don't say it.
I have one response from a black man, one from a white man. Don't rush me, and it makes me not pronounce words right. I don't like it.
Cassie?
Don't rush me.
Like
the
caste
system, and I know how to say it. Don't rush me. From Zach Trace Keith, he says, I wouldn't say that it's because white women have an advantage. Oh, they're coming through. I'm sorry, you guys. Have an advantage in the world. As I know many successful African-American women, it would be like me, a white man, wanting to seduce an African-American woman who dislikes white people. It's a challenge, and the skin color is relative here. That's from a white man.
That is the loser sound from The Price is Right. Now, let me get back to this point here. Caste, right? In the Hindu religion, the term in the Sanskrit language, it's Varna. If you live in the valley in Southern California, there's a street called Varna, right? The word Varna is Sanskrit for color. And in the Hindu caste system, the darkest and the blackest people are at the bottom of the caste system. The lightest and the whitest people are at the top. The caste system has been in place. And a lot of people will say, well, America doesn't have a caste system. Well, we do in a way when you get into ageism, racism, sexism, and classism, right? That is a caste in and of itself. And then if you throw racism on top of that, now you have ageism, racism, sexism, classism, but then racism is the reason why systems and institutions work in the way that they do. For instance, don't let highly qualified, highly educated Shaquita turn in a job application to JPL, Jet Proportion Laboratories. They're going to say Shaquita is black because ain't no white girl named Shaquita. So we're going to pass that. They'll just pass just on the term. Like Shaquanda Lisa is black. They're just right off the top. So there is systemic and institutional racism in place. But what do we do as a people? The only thing we got is the only thing OJ had. It's the only thing Michael Jackson had.
Their glove?
No. No.
Yes.
No. You know what they had? Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong here. You know what they had? They had the love of black people. Whenever Michael Jackson got into too fucking white, black people would be like, I ain't fucking with them records. Them records is hella white right now. But when he got in trouble, Michael Jackson didn't do that shit. Most black people like, hell nah. OJ got in trouble. Yay, that motherfucker got off free. Black people support blacks. But this is where black people get in trouble. We tend to only have this unwavering support for other black people so long as they're quote unquote accomplished. Support broke niggas too.
Yeah.
Support people that are struggling trying to come up. That's where we fall off.
No, that's
everybody has a gift, everybody has a talent, everybody has the potential to be something. Veronica?
I want to remind us, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. There's 1.9 million small solopreneurs, small business owners such as myself, black business owners in this country. And if every single one of them was in a position to hire one black employee, we would internally eradicate unemployment. We could think we could internally eradicate unemployment. But we don't have the consciousness. We don't support our black businesses so that the businesses have enough, wherewithal and fortitude to be able to hire another employee. And so there's got to be a very radical shift in our mindset. I mean, it is true. We can't just talk about it. We have to be about it. But we've got to begin to take real constructive action. There's a lot of plans that have been laid out. If you look at Maggie Anderson and the empowerment experiment, if you look at Tabitha Smiley and the whole prescription that they did, if you look at what Frances Cress Welsing said, if you look at what Claude Anderson said in Powernomics, there's plenty of black people that have written very powerful strategies and tactics for us to be engaged in. We just aren't doing it. I don't know what else we're doing. I don't know what we think we have the luxury of doing if we're not going to do that. We don't have the luxury of doing anything but getting ourselves together with one another and deciding our vision and our plans for the future. If we're not doing that, then I don't know what we're doing.
Wow. Heka activated. I need a psychic reading.
Black people have power. Let me just say this. Black people have power. If they would just know that they have power and stop just running around and saying that they have power. They have power. If they would just know it and tap into their own power, we would not have to be dealing with all this stuff that we're dealing with.
Wow. I love it. Psychic reading for me real quick. I like tough. I like tough psychic readings. I'm not going to ask no bullshit. Are we going to make it as a race? Can you see us coming together in any substantial way in the near future?
In the near future, it depends on what you consider near. I can't see that it's going to happen in our lifetime, but I do see that it will happen. We won't see it in our lifetime.
Wow.
Not in this lifetime. If we reincarnate and come back, but I don't feel like we'll see it in this lifetime. It's going to take some time.
Wow. Jesus. It's almost like Christianity. See, we got to die in order to experience heaven. We got to die and come back. I don't know. DJ from Chicago, you're my final caller. Holla at me, DJ.
Yo, it's DJ. I'm from Tacoma.
Tacoma. What's happening, Tacoma? Yeah, Seattle. Yeah. You about that action, huh?
Man.
Holla at me, man.
I really didn't have any questions, man. But I've been really on this for the last year or so, man. I really got on my Malcolm X tip, and it's just intriguing because it's just this whole thing is an illusion. Everything is an illusion, and everything is scripted by white people for this stuff to happen. And it's mind-boggling every time I see something, and it's like, well, that's an effect of white supremacy. Well, that's an effect of white supremacy. And I think that ultimately it starts with knowledge. I think that, just like she just said, black people have power. They just don't realize it because everything tells you that we don't. TV tells you we don't. Our rappers tell us we don't. Oof. I mean, it's BS that they say, you know what I mean? But I think that it starts with knowledge and confidence. I think that we have low self-esteem, and it's implemented from, once again, white supremacy. But the moment that we start to get educated about it and start feeling, that's why I'm on this right now, because I feel, and it's Malcolm X that did it to me. You know what I mean? I watch his videos almost every single night, and it makes me feel like, man, I could rule this world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey,
this is that's
right. Your sister wanted to chat you out real quick, man.
DJ. I was going to just tell them, this is my brother, y'all. Thanks for calling, DJ. I learned about Tim Wise from my brother. My brother was my oldest brother on the radio. His Facebook, this is one thing that tripped me out. As soon as he got into his Malcolm X and started posting about us black people, power, he has over 5,000 Facebook, whatever. They like, what happened to your Facebook after you started posting? Tell them.
Oh, yeah, they deleted my Facebook, deleted my page, man. My name is DJ Tabor. I've never went by my real name. It's real to get Facebook said, hey, we feel like that's a fake name, and show us proof that it's your real name, and we'll give you your page back. I did, but it was never giving it back, so I had to create a new.
To me, it was just after.
Page and
yeah.
Well, listen, brother, we appreciate the call, man. We appreciate the call. We got to take off, man, but thanks for reaching out. Thanks for supporting the Voice of Reason. Listen. We're about to wrap it up, man. This was a pretty interesting topic, man. Hey, I'm going to keep pushing the envelope. Veronica Conway, where can they find you really quickly? Real quick.
Yeah, veronicaconway.com is the best way to email me, especially if you want to join my boot camp.
Whitney Tabor.
Or blackmastery.com.
What's up, y'all? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Miss Tabor, Taber. Holler at me, Snapchat, Instagram, everything.
Cheyenne.
Social media is _ at Dr. Bryant. Website's mentaldetoxbook.com, mentaldetoxbook.com, or on Amazon.
Absolutely. And you guys got to support my So What morning show relationship roundtable dismount book tour. Man, you got to go to Indiegogo. Listen, we got incentives. If you give us $50 or more, we'll give you a ebook copy of the relationship dismount book. It is the consummate breakup book. 12 chapters, exercises, everything is crazy. Listen, it's been great. Love you guys. See you Wednesday.
You have to
have a good night.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Heka.
Activated.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Heka.
We can't leave Heka out.
Don't leave Heka. Jesus.
Go ahead, Heka.
Wait. Hold up. Stop the press. Find Heka Activated at www.hekaactivated.com. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook also at Heka Activated.
Perfect. There it is. We'll see you guys Wednesday, 5 to 7 p.m. The Voice of Reason. We out. Deuce.
We out.